Our final keynote speaker this morning previously served as the Vice President of Integrated Health Solutions for AstraZeneca Canada, one of the world's leading pharmaceutical companies. He has served in various advisory roles in order to further stimulate innovation in the healthcare industry of Canada. Today, he continues to do so as Ontario's Chief Health Innovation Strategist. Please welcome Mr. William Charnetski.
Clearly something I said. I lost like half the room and I haven't started. Wait, this is going to be very, very good. So first of all, thank you very much for having me here this morning. This is a pretty great crowd. It's quite a bit different than the crowds I usually present. Certainly a lot younger and a lot more energy. So I'm really looking forward to sharing a couple thoughts with you in a little bit different vein than what you've heard so far this morning. There's one very important thing I have to do before I get going into the presentation. I have to be a dad, and I'm going to give a shout out to my daughter Ava, who's actually here today. Now she's up there in the balcony somewhere, and I can't see her, so you have to wave. I promise that's the only really embarrassing dad thing I'll do today. Well, at least in the next 15 minutes. So I want to just check a couple things. I want to see who's in the crowd with us today. So by show of hands, how many of you are thinking that, as your career unfolds, you're going to be a clinician? So a doctor, a nurse, maybe a veterinarian. I know some of those in the room. How many? Okay. All right, next. How many of you are thinking you're going to be a researcher, a scientist of some sort? Oh, there's still many who haven't answered. So you're either too sleepy, you're on your phones, or you're doing something else. What else? Any other ideas on what you're going to do next? Just shout them out. Home care. That's a good one. Home care, veterinarian, right? Healthcare. Engineer. That's the one I was waiting for. Okay. So all these different disciplines, I think as you've heard already today, can take you down the healthcare line. And I want you to keep that in mind as I tell you a couple stories. So this is Jen. Jen lives in Ontario. She's 7 years old, and she has cystic fibrosis. And for those of you who know, cystic fibrosis is a horrible disease. It's actually the leading fatal genetic disorder that affects Caucasian people in the world. It's a terrible thing. It actually attacks all of your organs and eventually destroys your lungs, and that's what kills you. Now, with modern medicine, Jen will likely live into her 30s and maybe even longer. That all depends, though, on some pretty intensive specialized physiotherapy. So little Jen will have to 2 to 3 times a day undergo very specific physiotherapy that targets actually her lungs. It works to get the mucus out of her lungs to allow her to breathe and extend the life of the organ. So that has to happen 2 to 3 times each day. She also has to take a complex collection of medicine. And adherence to both the physiotherapy and the medicine are really, really critical, right? Now, I don't know how many of you, but I bet a whole bunch of you have either through babysitting or maybe because you've got a younger sibling or you've been a coach or instructor at a camp or something, you know how difficult it is to get a young child to do something and really focus on something that they don't want to do, right? So that's the challenge with Jen. This is John. John also lives in our province. He's a single father, and he now has chronic heart disease. And that's come from the fact that he had a heart attack when he was younger. So every day, John knows that he's at greater risk than the average person of a subsequent heart event. And what even complicates things further is his daughter goes to school every day, not knowing whether her dad is going to have one of those events while she's away. And the thing is, she'll never know about it. It just will happen outside of her understanding. is Amanda. So Amanda Wilson was 21 years old when this photo was taken. It was taken part of a story that the CBC did about pregnant homeless women on the streets of Toronto. There are hundreds of births that happen every year in Toronto in these types of circumstances. And you can imagine that given the challenges of her life, healthcare is not always available, or she's not able to take care of it in the way that you would like to. And that, of course, puts the child at risk. So these are very difficult situations, right? And you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, why is it going on and on about this? Like, this sucks. These are awful situations. But that's got to be the problem, a societal problem or a health system problem. It's somebody's problem. It's not my problem. Like, how am I supposed to deal with this? What's the point? So here's the point. Lots of amazing things have been done to take on these and other issues. So this, a bunch of hackers got together, really good at game development. They heard about Jen's situation, understood the challenge, remember the attention and interest level of a 7-year-old, and thought, maybe we can combine these things. So they actually have designed a game that has her breathing, encourages her breathing, and has the breathing pattern, actually give her success in the game. She works through the levels in the game depending on her constant and regular breathing. So now, these physiotherapy sessions that were torture for her are actually fun. Remember, I said that she needs to do them. Adherence is critically important to her. And now, it's a bit fun. This one I really love. That's why I have my notes. So, Frank and Andre, also from Ontario. In high school, Frank's mom suffered a heart attack, and exactly the same situation as we described with John. And he was at school clueless about what was happening with his mom. So he, with Andre, have developed a device that's known as Heart Watch. Some of you may actually have heard of it. So it measures a person's vital signs and then notifies emergency services as well as family members if something goes out of line. They were successful on Dragon's Den, that television show? So they were successful on Dragon's Den, and their company called Helpware, another one to watch for, is actually housed at Ryerson University's DMZ biomedical zone. Done a lot of work with DMZ. They're really, really terrific. They're now both doing engineering degrees at the University of Waterloo. Third one, My Baby and Me. Homeless pregnancy breaks your heart, right? Breaks your heart for her, breaks your heart for the kid. It's just terrible. So St. Michael's Hospital, not that far from where we are, used to send nurses and social workers out to talk to these women and interview them. And they would literally record the notes of the conversation on pen and paper. But they noticed something. They noticed that every one of these women had a cell phone, right? Counterintuitive, right? But they had a cell phone because that was their lifeline. That access to information, other people, was literally keeping them alive. So they were spending money on the cell phone, right? So St. Michael's sees this, understands this, and creates its own app called My Baby and Me. It's a passport app. So it's a multitasking, pocket-sized booklet for mothers that serves as an educational tool, resource guide, a mini antenatal record, communication log for multiple healthcare providers, and is a tool to help foster maternal attachment for moms who need all the help they can get. All of which comes from an app for the phone that it seems like, again, counterintuitively, every homeless mother has, right? So now, I'm like, okay, so I get this. There are people out there, hackers and app developers, engineering students figuring this out, but how can I make a difference? Again, why is he telling me all this stuff? At least it's happier than the last set of stories, but why us? Why is he telling me? How can I make a difference in all this? Well, you know what? You actually are making a difference already. The fact that you've signed up for HOSA and you're here says that you are part of the future of healthcare. It's really, really exciting. It's an amazing program. They're telling me there's 4,300 of you here, and that's over just the first 4 years. You are now starting to make a difference. You are part of the health system, part of the future of healthcare in our province and our country, and as you heard, maybe even around the world. So as you evolve your career, frankly in your personal life too, you're going to come across situations that you think are just impossible. Kind of like what we talked about in those first 3 stories, right? There is no solution to this. We can't deal with it. I can't get there. Don't give up. These are examples of hackathons, design outfits, incubators, innovation labs, educational institutions, even public policy entities, where they're all focused on innovation, all focused on how you can do things differently. And I really, really challenge you, as you go forward now, to think outside of that box that everybody puts you in. Society puts you in, the business environment puts you in, your universities and colleges puts you in. Think outside the box. When you come across that intractable problem, try to crack it. Get after it. The time to start innovating, the time to start coming up with solutions to the types of problems that I described in those first 3 stories is right now. Right now. And I really, really want to challenge you to think outside that box. I want you to challenge your peers to think outside that box. I want you to be the best that you can be and the most creative you can be as you embark on your journey in healthcare. And I want you to start doing it now. And I think you're off to a great start. And what I really want is, in my role of Chief Health Innovation Strategist for the province of Ontario, every day I'm talking to people that are coming up with ideas like this. I'm answering their emails or their texts, right? And what I can't wait to have happen is one of those times the person on the other end of that phone or the person who's written that email or that text is one of you. Maybe it's Ava. I lied. That's another dad moment. Honestly, I can't wait for it to be one of you to have written that communication or picked up the phone and called me. You are the future of healthcare. It's the most amazing aspect of HOSA. I hope you have a great couple days. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Charnetski. On behalf of everyone here today, please accept this plaque in honor of your dedication for your time and efforts into our conference.